what I find interesting is you chose this path. You've got this family background that's inclined towards law. I'm sure the origin story for your interest has to do with the influence of your parents. And then you go on this, this collegiate journey, right? I mean, you studied certain things, you had certain interests, and still you ended up in law school. You had this life of interesting jobs before that. Mm-hmm. And then at law school, I'm curious, did it meet your expectations? Do you even remember what you were expecting when you got there? And then I'm thinking, okay, by the time you get through law school, you're thinking, I want to go, like, you get to law school, you think, I'm going to do something with this degree. But your vision of what you're going to do changes over time. Like, there was a point when I thought I was going to work at the State Department when I was in college, and before I went to law school. I was going to go get a dual degree and get a master's in international relations and a law degree, and then go work at the State Department. Like, that was my vision for myself, and then it completely changed. And then I wanted to be a trial lawyer. I got the trial lawyer bug. And so for me, a lot of it changed because when I got to law school, reality was different than what I envisioned. But then you get a job, and I'm kind of curious, why did you choose to go to law school?
Yeah, no, definitely. And that was one thing, is that like in 5th and 6th grade, we had a social studies teacher, and we learned about all sorts of things from genocide to human rights to different, political ideologies. It was actually, some people might think that that's too young for that. And we didn't go into detail about like the gruesome stuff. But honestly, that's part of what made me interested in law, that and my parents. But that was actually great. It was like a great thing for me to learn at that age. And, we learned a little bit about politics and everything like that. The teacher wasn't too biased or anything. It'd be nice if they had that in every school. But of course, I was a public school substitute teacher. What
moved you about that?
Just that, it was interesting, and that I feel like if kids have a good introduction to politics, to learning about the world, we as humans are naturally interested in what's happening in other places. We're naturally interested in what's happening in our world. And so I think, and it's so freaking important to have an engaged populace, to have a populace that's informed, that's engaged, that cares about these things.
Can you imagine like our ancient ancestors in like a clan or a tribe or a big man egalitarian system, and somehow there was somebody that didn't know what was going on?
No.
It's impossible.
No, yeah.
Like our basic social constructs, our societal, family unit, the extended family, the clan, the tribe, the nation.
And speaking of tribe, it's interesting because I became opinionated about politics at a relatively young age too, and I'd say it was interesting because I think that when you first get into politics, it's easy to be like, oh, the other side, they're dumb, they're et cetera, they're dumb, they're uninformed, et cetera. And I guess it's like, and yeah, sure, I thought that at first, but by the time I was actually old enough to vote, I'd been following politics for long enough that I had learned that wasn't the case. And so I think
what wasn't the case?
That, the other side, if you're a Democrat, then it's the Republicans. If you're a Republican, then it's the Democrats. I had learned that, as it turns out, people who agree with me on things aren't the only ones who have intelligent opinions.
Or information.
Yeah. That, people who maybe have a different political ideology or vote differently than I would want them to, or things like that, they can have a valid and reasonable viewpoint.
But they have good information sometimes.
And I'd also say sometimes there could be people who agree with me about the facts, like they come to the same conclusion, but they are unjust people. You know what I mean? Like there could be people
they want to take something that doesn't belong to them from someone else.
Yeah.
And for unjust reasons.
And so that was weird discovering that there are people who have, I don't want to say, I like to say that, people themselves aren't bad, but people who do bad things, even though there are pretty evil people.
But there's evil ideas. There's like was it Benjamin Franklin that said, democracy works great until one side realizes it can fleece the other side? And that's true. Like once someone, it's about power. Like politics is about power. Once a group of people get together, what's the most dangerous thing on planet Earth? You think it's the nuclear bomb? Is it a hurricane? What do you think?
A mob.
I think a group of men with the power to kill is the most dangerous thing that civilization has ever seen.